Hi, how are you? I'm doing good. Now that that's out of the way, the selection fucking sucks.
This is the introduction song. It's not very good, but it's not too long.
I'd like to make one thing clear. I didn't go into this book wanting to hate it. I thought it looked like fun, cheesy wish fulfillments. You know, it looked fine. You know, it looked kinda interesting, and it was none of those things. Like, seriously, it was horrible. And it's not even that it was offensively bad so much. Like, there were a couple of parts that insulted my intelligence, sure. But for the most part, it was just devoid of anything good. And not having anything good in it is different from having a bunch of bad stuff in it. Let's just move on. What exactly makes this book so terrible? So the plot of this is actually okay. It's about a girl named America Singer who is selected to become a contestant on this sort of a reality show where she will live with the prince of her country along with 35 other girls, and eventually the prince will decide to marry one of them and they'll become the next queen. So it's basically just The Bachelor in some sort of weird post-apocalyptic future, and okay, that's fine, but the book barely focuses on that, to be honest. It throws in so many other weird subplots, like how America has another boyfriend who she's kind of still in love with, or extremely still in love with, I should say, and there's rebels trying to attack the palace constantly, and somehow this country hasn't collapsed already. The whole thing really just does not make any fucking sense, story-wise, and the world doesn't make any sense, and the characters are mostly just assholes. And that's really the biggest place where this book fails, is that all of the characters are just terrible. Just utterly terrible, okay? America and her boyfriend Aspen are probably the worst. Like, yeah, his name is actually Aspen. I'll get to the stupid names in a minute. America starts off as kind of a normal girl, but the thing is, she's too normal at first. You know, she has no personality, really. She has no interests or hobbies that we see. She has no friends that we see besides Aspen and her family. She has no real motivation. She just wants to marry Aspen and continue working and making a living. And that's just not a fun character to read about. But then, as time goes on, she legitimately becomes a giant bitch. I mean, I'm hesitant to go into spoilers here, but suffice to say that as time goes on, when she's on the show, she actually becomes friends with the Prince Maxon, and she also betrays his trust at a couple of points. And he doesn't find out about it in the book, but that's just a shitty way to treat people. And so, because of that, Aspen started off boring, and by the end, I just hated her. And then we go to Aspen. So at the beginning of the book, America and Aspen are in love, but their romance is kind of forbidden because they're from different castes. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But they meet up most nights in a treehouse, and they just talk and hang out and kiss and blah blah blah. And at first that was fine, but then Aspen convinces America to actually sign up for the selection to become possibly the next queen, and she eventually agrees to it just because it's a good opportunity. You know, her and her family could use the money, and okay, it makes sense that Aspen would suggest this, but then later, after she already signs up for it, Aspen and her meet up in the treehouse again, and within 6 pages, they go from, I love you, kiss, 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 to, this isn't going to work, we should leave. 6 pages. There's no time skips or anything. It's 6 pages from them talking about how they'll always love each other to Aspen leaving because it won't work out. Just why? America's family are also really annoying. Like, her mom is annoying, and from the beginning of the book is just constantly trying to pressure her into joining a selection, even though America makes it clear from the beginning that she really doesn't want to. And that's just not fun to read about. You know, overbearing parents are a really shitty thing to have, and it's not funny to see it unless you're Seymour Skinner from The Simpsons, in which case it is really funny. And it just made it so I didn't care about America wanting to help her family out. Like, her mom is annoying, her younger sister is especially annoying. There's a point at the end where America talks to her family on the phone, and she says, well, I'm not coming home quite yet. It's about Prince Maxon, and her sister literally just goes, oh my god, she's in love with Prince Maxon, and then starts screaming to her family without asking any more questions. And I'm just thinking, why the fuck are you going through all this trouble to help these people, America? They're obnoxious, they don't care about you, they don't care about your well-being. Just, why? Leave them alone. Let them do their own thing. And of course there's Prince Maxon, who is okay, actually. Yeah, he's an okay character. He's not great. He's fine. You know, he has a little bit of personality. You can tell he takes his duties as the next king very, very seriously. And so, yeah, he's all right. He's a nice guy. The way this book is written is pretty terrible too. I mean, the prose makes things kind of confusing at times. You know, for the most part, it's pretty straightforward, but then when it gets to anything even remotely sexual, like, and I mean like kissing or like touching each other, anything even kind of sort of a little bit sexual, it just turns all flowery. It makes it hard to tell what's going on. Like, near the end of the book, America and another guy are in her room, in a bed together, and I'm honestly not sure if they had sex or not. Like, did they? I don't fucking know. Like, I read it over like 6 times, just trying to be sure one way or the other, and it did not work. So, that's just a failure of this book. And that's just one example. There's a couple others, but I think that just about sums it up. This book is a failure in terms of the writing and prose. And I hate that I have to bring this up, but the world building in this really does not make even a lick of sense. Okay, so like I said, it's a post-apocalyptic future in the area that was generally the United States. Okay, that's fine. And the country is now called Ilea, and it has a monarchy instead of an elected government. Okay, I can buy that. You know, there's some sort of giant disaster which caused the political climate to completely shift and people to be okay with this sort of arrangement. Okay, that's fine. The details are where things fall apart, though. Okay, the overall shell of the world is fine, but I know it's a cliche, but the devil is in the details. So I'm just gonna go through these one at a time. Number 1, premarital sex is illegal in Ilea. Okay, sure, that's fine. You know, that there's actually places where that's illegal now, or places where it's been illegal in the past. That's realistic, I'm sure. The only thing is that that's an impossible to enforce law, so no one really takes it that seriously, right? Wrong. It's taken extremely seriously in this world. Like, if people are caught having premarital sex, they and their children are thrown out of society, basically, and become what's basically casteless, or untouchables, or whatever you want to call them. They're basically homeless drifters now, and I'm just thinking, so that still wouldn't work. That, like, there's no world in which that would work, because there have been places, even in the United States, before it became the United States, there have been places where premarital sex was punishable by death for both men and women, and it didn't work, okay? People still had sex before they got married. So that's really stupid, and it takes an aspect of the world that could have been used to sort of poke some fun at America's puritanical nature, and, well, America the country, not America the character, and maybe even give some real social criticism about how we treat that sort of thing, even in this day and age, but it just doesn't work at all. It completely fails. Number 2, names for everything are stupid. Now, I already mentioned that Aspen has a dumb name, but other characters have really dumb names too. There's a character named Tuesday in this, okay? I don't even think I need to go on beyond that, because that's just stupid on its own. But what's even worse are the names of the countries in this, okay? So, Ilea is named after one of the founders of the country. Okay, that's fine. That one's grand. But then you have a country called New Asia, apparently. Yeah, New Asia, I assume it's somewhere in Eastern Asia, like some sort of Chinese hegemony, but that's a retarded name. That's not what the people in China call themselves, and it's not what the people in Japan or Korea or anywhere else call themselves. okay? They might just call it the Chinese Empire or the Chinese Federation. There's a million names you could have gone with that would have made a million times more sense than New fucking Asia. And then there's Swendway, which I assume is supposed to be a combination of Sweden and Norway. You know, Norway and Sweden have been one country in the past. And you know what it was called? Fucking Norway, Sweden. They didn't need to make up names that just sort of mash things together like that. It's stupid. But I think the worst offender, and the only reason I really even bring this up, because this is pretty pedantic, I'll admit, is that apparently Ilea has provinces stretching down into Central America. Okay, that's pretty interesting, actually. It's just showing an imperialist side to this country. And one of the provinces is called Honduragua. Yep, Honduras and Nicaragua. Again, smashing names together. If you conquered both of those places, why not just call one Honduras and one Nicaragua? You could have two different provinces. I mean, when the United States annexed Texas, it was already called Texas. They didn't change its name. California was already called California. Nevada was already called Nevada. Why am I even having this conversation? It's just fucking stupid. Let's move on. And number 3, the most egregious example, is that the history makes no fucking sense. Okay, so in this book, it mentions that the United States collapsed during World War III. Okay, that's reasonable, but how did World War III start? Well, apparently, China didn't like that the United States was not paying back its debt, and so they invaded and took over. Oh god, that just hurts my brain. Okay, so this is a profound misunderstanding of geopolitics. Not just a misunderstanding, a profound misunderstanding. Let me explain. So, for starters, the majority of the United States government's debt is owed to entities in the United States, like either American companies or the Federal Reserve or other things like that, okay? China owns a pretty small fraction when compared to that. It's still over $1 trillion right now, but it's a small fraction nonetheless. And also, China does not care if the United States pays back its debt. In fact, they'd probably be happy if the United States never paid back its debt because they've made so much more money off of the interest by this point. Like, billions, hundreds of billions of dollars at this point. And in the book, they mention that the United States was bankrupt, but even if we're saying that, okay, China just can't make any of its money back, and so they're going to try and make it back by invading, that's just not realistic. Okay, maybe you could say that the United States military and all that has collapsed and become inept, and maybe the Chinese military has seriously built itself up and become an actual threat to the United States. Even if that were true, it would be a logistical nightmare to actually invade it. They'd have to cross an entire fucking ocean to get here. And again, we're assuming that the rest of NATO wouldn't come in, but okay, well, for the sake of argument, we'll say NATO doesn't exist. Even if that was the case, it mentions that China occupies the entire continental United States. That doesn't make any sense. Do you have any idea how big the United States is and how many people there are? You would need about 15 million soldiers to occupy the whole thing, okay? I just pulled that number out of my ass, but it's a huge number, okay? Like, you can't do this with 1 million soldiers, which is already going to be a huge, expensive number, okay? You remember when the United States occupied Iraq? How expensive that was and how many soldiers it took and how many people died doing it? Like, multiply that by about 1,000 and you'll get what it's like to occupy the entire United States, okay? Even if you set up some sort of puppet government like they mention they do, it's just not going to work. So the history in this is fucking stupid, but the present time is also fucking stupid. Because here's number 4. How the hell have the rebels not already won? So if you look at dictatorships in the past, the palace is usually the last thing to fall, or one of the last things to fall, because the dictator and his most loyal bodyguards will usually hole up in there at as their last line of defense. And when the rebels finally break through or the dictator runs off or something, that's when the war is over. And then, if we're being realistic, that's when all the rebel infighting starts and the whole country collapses into chaos and anarchy, but that's a story for another time. However, in this book, the rebels regularly attack the palace, and they regularly break in, and they regularly kill people. And not only that, they make a point of regularly breaking in, and regularly attacking, and regularly killing people. How are they doing this? Does the royal family just not have enough money to, or enough soldiers to protect themselves? Well, if that's the case, then why hasn't the rest of the country just collapsed into chaos and anarchy? I mean, America mentions that there's still law and order in the place where she lives, and it seems like there's law and order everywhere else too. Like, they still have planes flying and cars going around, and the rich aren't fleeing the country in droves or anything. How is this possible? The whole place should be collapsed into anarchy. There should be no food or anything. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. I could go on a little bit longer, but I think you all get the point by now. The Selection is a terrible book, okay? It's poorly put together, poorly thought out, poorly written, and everything about it just kind of annoys me. I really can't recommend this to anyone in good conscience. Like, maybe you could get some sort of entertainment out of it if you just think it's really stupid and laugh at it, but beyond that, I can't see much value in this. I'd say skip it.